The heat was unbearable, not just from the rivers of molten lava flowing like serpents through the volcanic wasteland, but from the rage burning in Gromnar's chest. His green skin glistened with sweat, his massive frame trembling not with fear, but with a fury so deep it threatened to consume him whole. Before him stood Uzrak, his brother in all but blood, the orc he would have died for without hesitation. And in Uzrak's hands, spilling through his fingers like water, were gold coins, dozens of them, hundreds of them. The firelight danced across their surfaces, each gleam a knife twisting deeper into Gromnar's heart. "You sold us out for gold." The words tore from Gromnar's throat, raw and jagged. His voice, usually steady as stone, cracked with disbelief. Behind them, the volcanic peaks rumbled, as if the earth itself recoiled from the betrayal. Uzrak's tusks caught the red glow of the lava, his eyes unable to meet Gromnar's accusing glare. The coins continued to fall, clinking against the blackened rock beneath their feet, each sound like the death rattle of trust itself. Gromnar's hand moved instinctively to the handle of his war axe, the leather grip worn smooth by years of shared battles. How many times had this weapon saved Uzrak's life? How many times had they stood back to back, surrounded by enemies, knowing without doubt that neither would abandon the other? The weight of those memories crashed over Gromnar like a tidal wave, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. The orc before him wearing rich furs and ornate jewelry, his fingers stained with the blood money of their people. This couldn't be the same warrior who had sworn a blood oath beneath the ancestor stones. This couldn't be the orc who had wept at Gromnar's side when they buried their fallen brothers after the Battle of Broken Spears. But it was. The evidence was undeniable. The gold. The guilt etched across Uzrak's face. The silence that screamed louder than any confession. "How did we get here?" Gromnar whispered, more to himself than to the traitor before him. How did we arrive at this moment? His massive shoulders sagged under the weight of the question. To understand this betrayal, to comprehend how a bond forged in blood could be shattered for mere coin, one had to go back. Back to when things were simple. Back to when honor meant everything and gold meant nothing. Back to when they were brothers. 23 winters ago, two young orcs stood in the training grounds of the Ironjaw clan, their wooden practice swords clashing with the enthusiasm of youth. Gromnar, even then broad-shouldered and powerful, had just knocked Uzrak flat on his back for the third time that morning. But Uzrak, leaner and quicker, never stayed down. His green skin was covered in dust, his tusks barely grown in, but his eyes burned with determination. "Again!" Uzrak had shouted, springing to his feet. The other young warriors laughed, but Gromnar saw something in that moment. He saw a warrior who refused to quit. He saw someone who understood that strength wasn't just in the muscles, but in the spirit that refused to break. So he offered his hand, not in mockery, but in respect. Uzrak took it, and from that moment, they were inseparable. They grew together, trained together. When Gromnar's father died in a skirmish with rival clans, it was Uzrak who sat with him through the night, speaking the old prayers to guide the spirit to the ancestors. When Uzrak struggled to master the war spear, unable to match the skill of the other warriors, it was Gromnar who stayed after training ended, practicing with him until moonlight replaced sunlight and their arms could barely lift the weapons anymore. The Ironjaw clan was their world. Nestled in the shadow of the Fang Mountains, their settlement was a collection of sturdy wooden longhouses, smoke rising from cooking fires, the constant sound of hammers on anvils as blacksmiths shaped weapons and tools. Children ran between the buildings, their laughter mixing with the guttural songs of the elders. War banners, decorated with the clan symbol of a massive jawbone, snapped in the mountain wind. This was home. This was everything worth protecting. When they came of age, both Gromnar and Uzrak participated in the Rite of Blood, the sacred trial that marked a young orc's passage into true warrior status. They were sent into the Shadowpine Forest, deep into territory where dire wolves and worse things prowled, tasked with hunting a great beast and returning with proof of their kill. Most young warriors went in groups. Gromnar and Uzrak went together, just the two of them, because that's what brothers did. 3 days into the forest, they found their quarry. A massive brown bear, easily twice the size of a normal bear, its fur matted with scars from countless battles. The creature had been terrorizing the clan's hunters for months. This was their chance to prove themselves beyond any doubt. The fight was brutal. The bear was faster than anything that large had any right to be. It caught Uzrak with a swipe of its massive paw, sending him crashing into a tree trunk with a sickening crack. Gromnar watched his friend crumple, watched blood seep from a gash across Uzrak's chest, and something primal took over. He didn't fight with technique. He didn't fight with strategy. He fought with the fury of someone protecting the only family he had left. When it was over, when the bear lay dead and Gromnar stood over it, his own green skin painted red with blood, both his and the beast's, his first thought wasn't of glory. It was of Uzrak. He carried his injured friend on his back for 2 days, refusing to rest, refusing to stop, terrified that if he did, Uzrak would slip away. Nazara, the clan's shaman, had been waiting when they returned. Her elderly face, green and weathered like old leather, broke into a rare smile when she saw them. "The spirits told me you would both return," she had said, her voice like wind through hollow bones. "They showed me your bond. Rare is the warrior who values his brother's life above his own glory." She tended to Uzrak's wounds with herbs and prayers, her wrinkled hands steady and sure. Within a week, Uzrak was walking again. Within a month, training again. After that, there was no question. They were bound by more than friendship. They went through the blood oath ceremony, standing before Chieftain Durgash and the assembled clan, each cutting their palm and clasping hands, letting their blood mix and drip onto the sacred ancestor stone. "By blood we are bound," they had said in unison. "By honor we stand. In battle we are one. In death we are eternal." Durgash, a mountain of an orc with a thick beard streaked with gray and eyes that had seen more battles than most warriors would ever fight, had placed his massive hands on both their shoulders. "You have sworn before the ancestors," he rumbled, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of leadership. "This oath is sacred. To break it is to spit on the spirits of those who came before. Do you understand?" They had understood. At least, Gromnar thought they both had. The years that followed were good ones. Gromnar and Uzrak became known throughout the Ironjaw clan as warriors of exceptional skill and unbreakable loyalty. They fought in the raids of the Eastern Valley, where 5 clans united against a human kingdom's attempt to expand into orc territory. They defended their home during the Winter of Wolves, when a massive pack, driven mad by starvation, attacked the settlement. Through it all, they moved as one. Gromnar's strength complemented Uzrak's speed. Uzrak's tactical mind balanced Gromnar's straightforward approach. But more than their combat prowess, it was their bond that inspired others. Young warriors looked at them and saw what true brotherhood meant. Elders spoke of them in the same breath as legendary pairs from the old songs. They were living proof that orcs were more than savage warriors. They were capable of loyalty so deep it transcended blood itself. Gromnar never noticed when things started to change. Looking back now, standing in the volcanic heat with betrayal fresh as an open wound, he could see the signs he'd missed. It started small. Uzrak began spending more time alone. He would disappear for hours, claiming he needed to clear his mind or scout the perimeter. He started wearing finer clothes, decorating his war gear with ornate metalwork that seemed excessive for a warrior. When Gromnar asked about it, Uzrak laughed it off. "We risk our lives for the clan," he had said. "Is it wrong to enjoy the rewards?" At the time, Gromnar had agreed. Why shouldn't a warrior enjoy the spoils of battle? Why shouldn't Uzrak take pride in his appearance? It seemed harmless. A personal preference. Nothing more. Then came the day that changed everything. The day the enemy arrived at their gates. It was early spring when the scouts returned, their faces grim. A human army, larger than any force seen in a generation, was marching toward Ironjaw territory. They wore the colors of the Kingdom of Ashfeld, a wealthy realm to the south known for its merchant princes and hired mercenary companies. The scouts reported thousands of soldiers, cavalry units, siege weapons, and worst of all, battle mages capable of hurling fire and lightning. Chieftain Durgash called an emergency council in the Great Longhouse. The clan's warriors, about 200 strong, gathered around the central fire pit. The air was thick with tension and the smell of burning pine. Durgash stood before the ancestor shrine, his weathered face grave. "The humans come with overwhelming force," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "They claim we raided their caravans. They demand we surrender our weapons and pay tribute in gold and supplies. They give us 1 week to comply or they will attack." Outrage erupted. Warriors shouted challenges, beat their chests, grabbed their weapons. The idea of surrender was unthinkable. The Ironjaw clan had never bowed to anyone. Their ancestors would spit on them from the spirit realm if they showed such cowardice. But Gromnar, for all his warrior's pride, was also practical. He had seen the scouts' reports. He had counted the numbers. "Chieftain," he called out, and the room fell silent. Everyone respected Gromnar's counsel. "We cannot win a direct battle against such numbers, but we know these mountains. We know the passes and the hidden trails. We can use guerrilla tactics, hit their supply lines, make them bleed for every step they take into our territory, make the cost so high they decide we're not worth the trouble." Uzrak stood beside him, as always. "Gromnar speaks wisely," he added. "We've fought outnumbered before. We can win this, but we must be smart. We must use our knowledge of the land." Durgash nodded slowly, his eyes moving between them. "Prepare defensive positions. Set up ambush points along the mountain passes. We will make these humans regret threatening the Ironjaw clan." Over the next few days, the clan prepared for war. Every able warrior readied their weapons. Traps were set in the forest. Lookout posts were established on the high peaks. Nazara performed rituals, calling on the ancestor spirits for protection and guidance. The shaman's tent filled with smoke from burning herbs, her chants echoing through the settlement as she painted protective symbols on warriors' foreheads. Gromnar worked tirelessly, organizing patrols, checking defenses, ensuring every warrior knew their role. Uzrak was equally busy, or so it seemed. He volunteered to scout the enemy's position personally, to get a better sense of their numbers and strategy. Gromnar clapped him on the shoulder before he left. "Be careful, brother. Come back to us." "Always," Uzrak had promised, his tusked smile familiar and reassuring. But Gromnar didn't know, couldn't have known, that when Uzrak left the settlement that night, he wasn't heading toward the human army to scout. He was heading toward them to negotiate. The first sign that something was wrong came 3 days later. Gromnar had led a small warband to ambush a human supply convoy. They had planned the attack perfectly, hidden in the rocky outcroppings overlooking the narrow pass where the wagons would have to travel. But when they arrived, the convoy was already gone, and waiting for them instead was a full company of human soldiers, positioned perfectly to counter their ambush. Only luck and Gromnar's quick thinking saved them. They fought their way out, but lost 3 warriors in the retreat. Good orcs, brave orcs, warriors with families waiting for them back home. When they returned to the settlement, bloodied and fewer in number, Gromnar reported to Durgash. "They knew we were coming. They knew our exact position." The chieftain's face darkened. "You're certain?" "As certain as I am that I'm standing here. That ambush was prepared specifically for us. Someone told them our plans." The word spread quickly. There was a traitor in the clan. Someone was feeding information to the humans. But who? The Ironjaw clan was family, brothers and sisters bound by blood and tradition. The idea that one of their own would betray them was almost incomprehensible. Gromnar didn't want to believe it either, but he couldn't ignore the evidence. Over the next week, 3 more planned attacks failed mysteriously. Each time the humans seemed to know exactly where the orc warriors would strike. Each time good warriors died because they walked into prepared defenses instead of vulnerable targets. The clan's morale began to crack. Whispers of dark magic and cursed luck spread through the settlement. Some warriors began to doubt whether they could win at all. It was Nazara who first voiced the suspicion that Gromnar had been trying to suppress. She found him late one night, sitting alone near the ancestor stones, staring at the memorial markers of the fallen. The old shaman's eyes, still sharp despite her age, studied him carefully. "You know who it is," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Gromnar's hands clenched into fists. "I suspect, but I don't want to believe. The spirits show me troubling visions. I see gold, so much gold. I see one of our own, tempted by wealth beyond imagination. I see greed poisoning honor like rot in a tree." Nazara's gnarled hand touched Gromnar's shoulder. "Sometimes the hardest battles we fight are not against our enemies, but against the truth we don't want to see. If I'm right," Gromnar's voice was barely a whisper, "if I'm right, then everything I believed about brotherhood, about loyalty, about the oaths we swear, what does it mean if it can all be bought?" "It means," Nazara said softly, "that not all orcs are worthy of the honor they claim. And it means that true loyalty, the kind that cannot be bought, becomes even more precious because it is so rare." That night, Gromnar made his decision. He would watch. He would follow. He would find the truth, no matter how much it hurt, because the clan needed to know. Because the warriors dying in ambushes deserved to know why their sacrifices were being wasted. Because if there was a traitor, they had to be stopped before more blood was spilled. For 3 days, Gromnar became a shadow. He tracked Uzrak's movements without being seen, using every skill he'd learned as a hunter and warrior. He watched his blood brother slip away from the settlement in the dead of night. He followed him through the dark forest, maintaining distance, moving silently across terrain they had both traveled 1,000 times together. And then he saw it. In a clearing deep in the woods, illuminated by torchlight, Uzrak met with 2 human soldiers. They wore the colors of Ashfeld, and between them stood a wooden chest. When they opened it, even from a distance, Grumnar could see the gleam. Gold. More gold than most orcs would see in a lifetime. The humans spoke in their language, but their gestures were clear. They handed Uzrak a map, pointed to locations, discussed something at length. Then they handed him a heavy pouch, and the distinctive sound of coins clinking together carried through the night air. Uzrak took it, took the gold, took the blood money, and when the humans left, he stood there alone in the clearing, weighing the pouch in his hand, his expression hidden in shadow. Gromnar wanted to storm out of hiding right then, wanted to confront him, to demand an explanation, to give him a chance to deny it somehow, but he held back. He needed more. He needed to be absolutely certain, because once this accusation was made, there would be no going back. So he waited. He watched. He gathered evidence. The next planned ambush was scheduled for 2 days later. Grumnar told only Durgash about what he'd seen, and together they devised a test. They held a council meeting where they announced false plans for the ambush, giving specific locations and times that were completely wrong. If Uzrak was truly the traitor, he would pass this false information to the humans, and the real ambush, led by Gromnar at a completely different location, would succeed. It worked. The actual ambush was a complete success. They destroyed a supply caravan, captured valuable weapons, and didn't lose a single warrior. Meanwhile, human soldiers were spotted waiting at the false location Gromnar had announced in the council, clearly prepared for an attack that never came. The trap had been sprung. The evidence was undeniable. Uzrak was the traitor. But proof and acceptance were 2 different things. Gromnar's heart felt like it was being crushed in a vice. How much gold had it taken to buy Uzrak's honor? How many warriors' deaths weighed on his conscience? And most painful of all, had their brotherhood ever been real? Or had Gromnar been blind to who Uzrak truly was all along? Durgash wanted to arrest Uzrak immediately, to drag him before the clan and execute him for treason. But Gromnar asked for one thing. He asked to confront Uzrak himself, privately, to hear from his brother's own mouth why he had done this unthinkable thing. The chieftain, understanding the depth of Gromnar's pain, agreed. So Gromnar sent word to Uzrak through a messenger. A simple message. "Meet me at the burning stones at sunset. Come alone. I need to speak with you about something important." The burning stones was what the clan called the volcanic area on the eastern edge of their territory, where lava flows created a landscape of black rock and red rivers of molten stone. It was a sacred place, where orcs sometimes came to meditate or commune with the spirits. It was also isolated, away from the settlement, where no one would interrupt them. Uzrak agreed to meet. Gromnar wondered if his blood brother suspected, if he knew the truth was finally revealed, or perhaps he thought himself too clever to be caught, too careful to leave evidence. Either way, he came. And now they stood here, in this place of fire and stone, with the truth hanging between them like a blade waiting to fall. The silence stretched between them like an eternity. Gromnar stared at Uzrak, waiting for something, anything, that might make this nightmare make sense. An explanation, a denial. Even a lie would be better than this suffocating quiet. But Uzrak just stood there, the gold coins scattered at his feet, his ornate clothing suddenly looking like the costume of a stranger. "Say something," Gromnar finally growled, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me there's some other explanation for why you're standing here with a fortune in human gold." Uzrak's jaw tightened, his tusks catching the volcanic glow. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "You weren't supposed to find out like this." Those words hit Gromnar harder than any weapon could. Not a denial, not even an attempt to lie, just regret at being caught. "That's what you have to say? That I wasn't supposed to find out?" His hand tightened on his axe handle. "How long, Uzrak? How long have you been selling us out? It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." Gromnar's roar echoed off the volcanic rocks. "Our warriors are dying, good orcs who trusted you, who fought beside you, who believed you were their brother. And you sold them to the enemy for gold." Uzrak flinched, but didn't retreat. "You don't understand the situation we're in. That human army, they're going to destroy us, Gromnar. I've seen their numbers. I've seen their weapons. We can't win. So you decided to betray us instead." Gromnar took a step forward, and Uzrak instinctively reached for his own weapon. The gesture cut deep. How many times had they sparred together, trained together, fought together? Now they stood as enemies, hands on weapons, the volcanic heat nothing compared to the burning anger between them. I decided to survive. Uzrak's composure cracked, emotion flooding into his voice. I decided that dying for honor is a luxury we can't afford anymore. The world is changing, brother. The humans have gold, power, organization. What do we have? Pride, tradition. How much is that worth when we're all dead? It's worth everything, Gromnar said quietly, dangerously. It's what separates us from animals. It's what makes us orcs. Orcs are dying out, Uzrak shouted back. Can't you see that? Everywhere human kingdoms are expanding. They have better weapons, better armor, better tactics. They have magic and machines we can barely comprehend. And we cling to our old ways, our warrior codes, as if that will save us. It won't. The only way to survive is to adapt, to make deals, to take what we can get while we still can. Gromnar shook his head slowly. When did you become this? When did you stop being the orc who took a blood oath with me? The orc who said he'd rather die than betray his clan? When I realized that death is permanent and honor is just a word. Uzrak's green skin was flushed, his breathing heavy. When I watched Hargrim die in that first failed ambush. Do you remember him? Young warrior, barely 20 winters old. He had a mate, a child on the way. He died because he believed in the plan I helped create. And when I held his body, when I saw what we were asking our people to sacrifice, I asked myself, what are we really fighting for? To stay poor? To stay isolated in these mountains? To die gloriously like our ancestors did? You dare speak of Hargrim? Gromnar's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. You helped kill him. You told the humans where we'd be. His blood is on your hands. His blood is on all our hands. Uzrak's voice broke. Don't you see? That's my point. Every warrior who dies in this pointless war is a waste. The humans offered me a way out. Wealth beyond imagination. Safety for myself and anyone I choose to bring with me. They promised me land, title, a future where I don't have to worry about where my next meal comes from, or whether I'll die in some meaningless skirmish over territory no one really wants. They promised you everything except your honor. Honor doesn't feed families, Gromnar. Honor doesn't stop swords. Honor is what leaders tell warriors to make them willing to die for causes that don't benefit them. Gromnar studied his former brother, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. Tell me something. When did they approach you? When did the humans first offer you gold? Uzrak hesitated, then seemed to decide there was no point in hiding anything now. 3 months ago, before the army even marched, a merchant caravan came through our territory. One of the merchants was actually a spy. He sought me out specifically, said he'd heard of my reputation, said I seemed like a smart orc who could see the bigger picture. He showed me a chest of gold, asked me what I wanted most in the world. I told him I wanted security, wanted to not worry about the future. He said that could be arranged. And you said yes, just like that. Not immediately, Uzrak said defensively. I struggled with it. I thought about our oath, about the clan, about you. But then I thought about what the alternative was. Fighting a war we couldn't win, watching our people die slowly. Living and dying in these mountains like our fathers and their fathers, never knowing anything beyond survival and warfare. Was that really the life I wanted? Was that really all there was? It's called loyalty, Gromnar said. It's called standing with your people even when things are hard. It's called being worthy of the oath you swore. The oath was made by young orcs who didn't know any better. Uzrak shot back. We were children playing at being warriors, speaking words we didn't understand. The real world isn't like the old songs, Gromnar. It's not about honor and glory. It's about power and gold. The humans understand that. Why can't we? Because if we think like that, we're no better than them. We become exactly what they think we are. Savages with no code, no honor, no loyalty. Is that what you want to be? Uzrak laughed bitterly. You still don't get it. That's what we already are to them. They don't respect us. They never will. No matter how honorable we are, no matter how loyal, they see us as obstacles to be removed or tools to be used. So why not be the one using them instead of being used? How much? Gromnar asked suddenly. How much gold did they pay you for each piece of information? How much is a warrior's life worth in your new world? Uzrak's expression hardened. More than you'd think. Enough to live like a chieftain for the rest of my days. Enough to never have to fight again if I don't want to. Enough to matter. You always mattered, Gromnar said, and for the first time his voice carried more sadness than anger. You were my brother. You were respected by the clan. Warriors looked up to you. Children wanted to grow up to be like you. You had everything that truly matters. And you traded it all for coins that will turn to rust and be forgotten. Coins buy food, coins buy shelter, coins buy safety. What does respect buy when you're starving? What does loyalty buy when an enemy sword is cutting you down? It buys you a place in the halls of our ancestors. It buys you a legacy worth remembering. It buys you the knowledge that you lived and died as something more than a coward and a traitor. Uzrak's hand tightened on his weapon. Careful, Gromnar. We may have been brothers once, but I'm still dangerous. Don't push me. Or what? You'll kill me too? Add my name to the list of orcs whose deaths you profited from. Gromnar's laugh was harsh. Go ahead. At least I'll die knowing who I am. Can you say the same? When you're living in whatever estate the humans give you, surrounded by your gold, will you be able to sleep? Or will you see their faces? Hargrim, Mogaresh, Krazor, all the warriors who died because you told the humans where to find them. They were casualties of war. They were your brothers, your clan, and you murdered them as surely as if you'd held the swords yourself. The accusation hung in the air. Uzrak's face twisted with something that might have been guilt or might have been anger. I gave them mercy, he said finally. The humans wanted to slaughter everyone, men, women, children, burn the settlement to the ground and take the territory. I negotiated. I convinced them to make it a siege instead, to give us a chance to surrender. Every day this drags on, fewer orcs die. In the end, when Durgesh finally accepts that we can't win, I'll broker a peace. The clan will survive. Isn't that worth something? A clan that surrenders its honor isn't surviving. It's just slowly dying in a different way. Gromnar's voice was steady now, resolved. You want to know what the real tragedy is? It's not that you betrayed us for gold. It's that you convinced yourself you were being smart, that you were somehow helping. You wrapped your greed in logic and your cowardice in practicality. But deep down, I think you know the truth. You're not a visionary seeing the future. You're just a warrior who got scared and chose the easy path. The easy path? Uzrak's voice rose. You think any of this was easy? Meeting with the humans, knowing if I was caught I'd be executed? Watching warriors die in ambushes I helped plan? Looking you in the eye every day while lying about where I'd been? You think that was easy? Then why did you keep doing it? The question was simple, direct, and Uzrak had no answer. He stood there, surrounded by his gold coins, dressed in his fine clothes, and for a moment he looked small, diminished. The volcanic wind blew ash between them, and in the red glow of the lava, Gromnar saw his former brother clearly, saw the fear beneath the justifications, saw the guilt buried under the rationalizations, saw an orc who had made a terrible choice and then kept making worse choices to justify the first one. I kept doing it, Uzrak finally said, his voice barely audible over the volcanic rumble. Because once you start down that path, there's no going back. The first time I met with them, I told myself it was just to see what they wanted, that I could always refuse. But they showed me the gold, and I took it, just a little, just to see what it felt like. And it felt powerful, like I had control over my own destiny for the first time. So I took more, gave them small pieces of information, nothing critical, or so I told myself. But each time they asked for more, and each time I gave it, because by then I'd already crossed the line. What was one more step? One more betrayal? They all blended together until I couldn't even remember where the line had been. You could have stopped at any time, Gromnar said. Could I? Uzrak looked up, and his eyes were haunted. Could I really? Once the first warrior died because of information I provided, I was guilty. Stopping wouldn't bring him back, wouldn't make me innocent. So I kept going, thinking that maybe if I saw it through, if I helped broker a peace, I could somehow make it all worthwhile. Make all the deaths mean something. They meant something, Gromnar said coldly. They meant you're a traitor and a murderer, and now you have to face the consequences. Uzrak's expression shifted from guilt to fear to desperation. What are you going to do? Take me back to Durgash? Let him execute me in front of the clan? Make an example of me? That's not my decision to make. The chieftain and the elders will decide your fate. You know what they'll decide. There's only one punishment for treason. Then you should have thought of that before you betrayed us. Uzrak's hand moved to his weapon. I won't go back there. I won't let them parade me before the clan and butcher me like an animal. You made your choice when you took the gold. Now live with it. Or die with it. Either way, you're coming back to face judgment. No. Uzrak drew his blade. A well-crafted sword with a golden hilt that probably cost more than most orcs earned in a year. I'm not going back. If you try to take me, I'll fight. And I'll kill you if I have to, brother or not. Gromnar drew his war axe, the familiar weight comforting in his hands. Don't make this worse than it already is. Worse? How could it possibly be worse? You're going to drag me back to die. At least this way, I die on my feet, fighting. Uzrak shifted into a combat stance, one Gromnar had seen 1,000 times in training. They knew each other's fighting styles intimately. Every move, every technique, every weakness. This wouldn't be like fighting a stranger. This would be like fighting a mirror image of himself. I don't want to kill you, Gromnar said, and meant it despite everything. Then walk away. Pretend you never saw me. Tell Durgash I escaped. I'll disappear. The humans will honor their deal with me. I'll vanish into one of their cities where no one knows what I've done. You can tell yourself I died, and eventually, maybe you'll even believe it, and let you live in comfort while the warriors you murdered lie cold in the ground, while their families mourn, while the clan struggles to survive the war you helped prolong. Gromnar shook his head. I can't do that. I won't do that. Then we're doing this. Uzrak's voice hardened, the fear disappearing behind a warrior's resolve. One last fight, brother against brother. Let the spirits decide who deserves to live. They circled each other, weapons ready, the volcanic landscape around them creating an arena of fire and stone. Gromnar's mind raced through memories, training together as young warriors, fighting side by side in real battles. Uzrak saving his life during the Winter of Wolves, Gromnar carrying Uzrak back from the rite of blood, the blood oath ceremony, 23 years of brotherhood, ending here in violence and betrayal. Uzrak struck first. He always had been the faster of the two. His sword came in low, aimed at Gromnar's leg, a crippling strike meant to end the fight quickly. But Gromnar had trained against this move hundreds of times. He pivoted, letting the blade pass harmlessly, and swung his axe in a powerful arc. Uzrak barely blocked it, the impact sending vibrations through both their weapons. They broke apart, circled again. The volcanic ground was treacherous, black rock slick with condensation, cracks in the earth glowing with heat. One wrong step could mean death, even without a weapon involved. You taught me that counter, Uzrak said, breathing hard already. The emotional weight of what they were doing was taking its toll on both of them. I taught you everything I know, Gromnar replied, which means I know exactly how you'll fight. Then you know I won't make this easy. They clashed again, metal ringing against metal. Uzrak was faster, more agile, but Gromnar was stronger, his strikes carrying devastating power. They moved across the volcanic landscape like dancers in some terrible performance, each knowing the other's rhythms perfectly. Block, strike, counter, retreat. It was almost beautiful in its precision. Two warriors who had spent decades learning each other's every move. But this wasn't a sparring match. This was life and death, and the emotional wounds they carried made them sloppy. Uzrak's strikes were wild with desperation. Gromnar's defenses were compromised by the tears threatening to blur his vision. How many times had they fought side by side? How many enemies had fallen to their combined might? And now they turned those same skills against each other. Uzrak feinted left, then spun right, his blade slicing across Gromnar's shoulder. Green blood welled up, hot and painful. Gromnar roared, more in anguish than pain, and slammed his axe down. Uzrak rolled aside, but not quite fast enough. The axe blade caught his arm, tearing through the expensive fabric and biting into flesh. They both bled now, both hurt, both struggling with the impossibility of what they were doing. Stop this, Gromnar shouted. Come back with me. Face judgment with dignity. No! Uzrak pressed his attack, a flurry of strikes that forced Gromnar backward toward a river of lava. The heat was incredible, sweat pouring down both their green faces. I won't die for your precious honor. Gromnar's foot slipped on loose rock. He stumbled and Uzrak saw his chance. The sword thrust forward, aimed at Gromnar's heart, but years of instinct took over. Gromnar twisted, the blade sliding past his ribs instead of through them. Pain exploded in his side, but he grabbed Uzrak's sword arm with his free hand, pulling the traitor close. For a moment, they were face to face, their tusks nearly touching, both breathing hard. Gromnar could see tears in Uzrak's eyes, could feel his former brother trembling. Please, Uzrak whispered. Please, just let me go. Tell them I died here. Tell them whatever you want. I just want to live. You gave up that right when you took the gold, Gromnar said, and headbutted Uzrak with brutal force. The traitor staggered back, blood streaming from his nose, his sword falling from nerveless fingers. Gromnar advanced, axe raised, ready to end this, but he hesitated. Despite everything, despite the betrayal, and the deaths, and the broken oath, this was still Uzrak, still the orc who had been his brother for 23 years. That hesitation saved Uzrak's life. He dove for his fallen sword, rolled, came up in a defensive crouch. "You can't do it," he said, half laughing, half sobbing. "Even now you can't kill me. That's the difference between us, Gromnar. You're too bound by sentiment. I'm free. You're not free," Gromnar said quietly, lowering his axe. "You're a prisoner of your own cowardice, and you'll never escape it. No matter how far you run or how much gold you hoard, every time you close your eyes, you'll see their faces. Every quiet moment, you'll hear their voices. The ancestors won't welcome you. The spirits will turn away. You'll be alone forever, even in a crowd." Something in Uzrak broke then. The realization of what Gromnar was saying, the truth of it, crashed over him like a wave. He had thought he was being smart, pragmatic, surviving, but he hadn't survived. He had just found a different way to die, one that would stretch out over years instead of ending in one clean sword stroke. "What do I do?" Uzrak asked, his voice small, broken. The warrior facade crumbled, leaving behind something pitiful and lost. "I can't undo what I've done. I can't bring them back. What do I do?" "You face it," Gromnar said. "You come back with me. You stand before Durgash and the clan. You confess everything, and you accept whatever judgment they pass. They'll execute me. Probably. Then what's the point? I'll die either way. At least if I run, I'll live a little longer. The point," Gromnar said, his voice firm, "is that you'll die as an orc, not as a coward, not as a traitor running from justice. You'll face your end with whatever dignity you can salvage. Maybe that doesn't sound like much to you, but it's more than you deserve." Uzrak stood there, sword hanging loosely in his hand, staring at the gold coins scattered around his feet. All that wealth, all that promise of security and comfort, and it meant nothing now. It had never meant anything. It was just metal, cold and lifeless. It couldn't give him back his honor, couldn't restore his reputation, couldn't wash the blood from his hands. "I was afraid," he finally admitted, his voice breaking. "When the humans approached me, when I saw their army, I was terrified. I've fought in battles, faced death dozens of times, but this was different. This felt inevitable, like we were all marching toward extinction. And I didn't want to die, Gromnar. I didn't want to be just another dead orc in a forgotten war. I wanted to matter, wanted to be remembered. Wanted to..." He trailed off, unable to finish. "You'll be remembered," Gromnar said grimly. "Just not the way you hoped." A sound from above made them both look up. Warriors were approaching, a full war band led by Chieftain Durgash himself. Nazara was with them, her ancient eyes sad but unsurprised. They had followed Gromnar, unable to trust that he could handle this alone. Or perhaps they had known all along how this would end. Durgash descended from the rocky path, his massive frame silhouetted against the red sky. Other warriors spread out, surrounding the volcanic arena, weapons drawn. There would be no escape now, even if Uzrak tried. The chieftain's eyes swept over the scene, taking in the blood, the weapons, the gold coins glinting on the ground. His weathered face hardened with anger and sorrow in equal measure. "Uzrak, son of Maghar," Durgash's voice boomed across the volcanic landscape. "The evidence of your treachery has been laid bare. You have betrayed your clan, broken your blood oath, and caused the deaths of warriors under my protection. What say you in your defense?" Uzrak looked at Gromnar one last time, something pleading in his eyes. But Gromnar offered no mercy, no rescue. This was Uzrak's burden to bear alone. The traitor's shoulders slumped. He dropped his sword, the blade clattering against the black rock. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "I have no defense, chieftain. Everything you say is true. I took the humans' gold. I told them our plans. Warriors died because of me. He choked on the words. "I betrayed everything we stand for, everything I once believed in." "Why?" The question came from one of the younger warriors, voice thick with hurt and confusion. "Why would you do this to us?" "We were your brothers." "Because I was weak," Uzrak answered, and there was terrible honesty in his admission. "Because when I was offered an easy way out, I took it. Because I convinced myself I was being smart when I was really just being a coward. Because I let fear poison honor and greed corrupt loyalty. He looked directly at Gromnar. Because I forgot what my blood brother tried to teach me every day. That what we are matters more than what we have. That dying with honor is better than living with shame. Nazara stepped forward, her staff clicking against the rock. She approached Uzrak, studied him with eyes that had seen generations of orcs come and go. The spirits weep for you, she said softly. They showed me your path months ago. Showed me the choice you would face and the choice you would make. I prayed to the ancestors that the vision was wrong, but the spirits do not lie. Can they forgive me? Uzrak asked desperately. The ancestors, the spirits, can they forgive what I've done? That is not for me to say, Nazara replied. Forgiveness must be earned, and you have much to atone for. But perhaps, she paused, considering, perhaps facing your end with courage, with honest admission of your crimes, is a first step. The journey to redemption is long, but it begins with truth. Durgesh raised his hand, and the warriors fell silent. The chieftain's face was carved from stone, showing no emotion, but his eyes betrayed the pain of this moment. Uzrak had been one of his finest warriors, someone he had trusted implicitly. This betrayal cut deep. Uzrak, Durgesh said formally, his voice carrying the weight of judgment. By the laws of the Ironjaw clan, by the traditions of our ancestors, by the blood oath you swore and broke, you are guilty of treason. The penalty is death, but you will be given a choice in how you meet that fate. You can face execution by the clan, a public death witnessed by all. Or, he paused, his eyes shifting to Gromnar. Or you can face trial by combat against the warrior who discovered your crimes. If you win, you go free. If you lose, you die with weapon in hand, as a warrior should. The offer was more mercy than Uzrak deserved, but it was the orc way. Even traitors were given the chance to die fighting. Uzrak looked at Gromnar, at the blood brother he had betrayed. He looked at his sword, lying on the ground within reach. He could pick it up, could fight. Gromnar was wounded, tired. Maybe Uzrak could win. Maybe he could escape with his life. But even as the thought formed, he knew he wouldn't take it. Because Gromnar was right. Living as a coward, always running, always hiding, that wasn't life. That was just a slow death stretched out over years. Better to end it here, in this place of fire and stone, with whatever shred of dignity he could claim. I choose, Uzrak's voice was steady now, resolved. I choose to accept execution, public, witnessed by the clan. Let them see what becomes of traitors. Let my death be a lesson to any who might be tempted as I was. He looked at Gromnar. I won't fight you, brother. I've hurt you enough already. Gromnar's jaw clenched, emotions warring across his face. Part of him had hoped Uzrak would choose combat, would die fighting like a warrior. It would have been easier somehow. But this choice, this acceptance of a shameful death, required a different kind of courage. The courage to face the consequences fully, without trying to mitigate them with a glorious final battle. So be it, Durgesh declared. Bind him. We return to the settlement at first light. The clan will witness justice. Warriors moved forward, securing Uzrak's hands with leather bindings. He didn't resist, didn't fight. The gold coins lay forgotten on the volcanic rock, worthless now. All that wealth, all that promise abandoned like the honor he had sold to acquire it. As they prepared to leave, Nazara approached Gromnar. The old shaman's eyes were ancient and knowing. You grieve for him still, she observed, even after everything. He was my brother for 23 years, Gromnar said quietly. I can't just stop feeling that because he betrayed us. I hate what he did. I hate the choices he made. But I remember who he was before the gold corrupted him. That orc was worth grieving for. The orc he was still lives in your memories, Nazara said gently. Hold on to that. Remember the brother you knew. Even as you accept the traitor he became, both truths can exist together. The spirits understand this duality. They do not expect you to feel only hatred. The journey back to the settlement took hours. They traveled through the night, torches lighting their way through mountain paths. Uzrak walked in the center of the group, head down, silent. No one spoke to him. The warriors who had once called him brother now looked at him with contempt or pity or both. Dawn broke as they reached the settlement. Word had already spread. The entire clan was gathered in the central square, hundreds of orcs, young and old, warriors and civilians. Their faces showed shock, anger, disbelief. Uzrak had been respected, admired. Learning of his betrayal was like learning that the ground beneath their feet wasn't solid. Durgesh stood on the platform usually reserved for announcements and celebrations. Today it would serve a darker purpose. "People of the Ironjaw clan," his voice rang out, "we stand here to witness justice. Uzrak, once a warrior of honor, once a blood brother sworn to loyalty, has been revealed as a traitor. He sold our plans to the human army. Warriors died because of his actions. He broke every oath, betrayed every trust. He has confessed to these crimes." The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. Shouts of anger, cries of grief from the families of those who had died in the ambushes. Someone threw a rock. It struck Uzrak's shoulder, but he didn't flinch, didn't try to dodge. He stood there, accepting it all, accepting the hatred he had earned. "He will be executed at sunset," Durgash continued. "Until then, he will remain bound in the center of the square, so that all may see what becomes of those who betray the clan. Let this be a lesson. Let this be a warning. Honor is not negotiable. Loyalty is not for sale. We are orcs, and we do not compromise on these truths." The day passed slowly. Uzrak knelt in the square, bound and exposed to the harsh mountain sun. People came to stare, to condemn, to grieve. Some of the warriors whose comrades had died in the ambushes spat at him. Others simply stood silently, their judgment needing no words. Gromnar watched from a distance, unable to look away, but unable to approach either. This was necessary, he told himself. Justice had to be served. The clan needed to see that betrayal had consequences. But knowing that didn't make it easier to watch his former brother's humiliation. As afternoon stretched toward evening, Nazara performed the rituals of preparation. She painted symbols on Uzrak's forehead with ash and clay. Symbols meant to guide a soul to the afterlife, but these symbols were different from the usual ones. These were marked with the sign of the broken oath, telling the ancestors that this spirit came to them in shame. "Do you have any final words?" Nazara asked Uzrak, her voice neither kind nor cruel, simply factual. Uzrak raised his head, looking out at the assembled clan. When he spoke, his voice carried across the silent crowd. "I have no excuses, no justifications. What I did was unforgivable. I let fear make me weak. I let greed make me blind. I betrayed warriors who trusted me, families who depended on me, a clan that honored me. I broke my blood oath with the finest orc I've ever known." His eyes found Gromnar in the crowd. "I don't ask for forgiveness, I don't deserve it. I only ask that you remember this moment, remember what I became, and swear to yourselves that you'll never let fear or greed corrupt you as it corrupted me. Let my death mean something. Let it be the last death my betrayal causes." The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. The time had come. Durgash himself would serve as executioner. It was the chieftain's right and responsibility. Uzrak was led to the execution platform. His hands remained bound, but he walked steadily, head held as high as he could manage. When he knelt before Durgash, awaiting the blade, Gromnar finally stepped forward. "Wait," he called out. The crowd parted for him as he approached the platform. He climbed the steps, stood before Uzrak, looked down at the orc who had been his brother. "I won't say I forgive you," Gromnar said, his voice low enough that only Uzrak could hear. "What you did was unforgivable, but I want you to know that I don't hate you. I hate your choices. I hate what you became. But the orc you were, the one I called brother, I'll remember him. I'll carry his memory with honor, even as I condemn the traitor you chose to be." Tears streamed down Uzrak's green face. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for all of it. For everything. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to be the brother you deserved." Gromnar nodded once, then stepped back. There was nothing more to say. No words could undo what had been done. Durgash raised his great sword, the blade catching the last light of the setting sun. "By the power vested in me as chieftain of the Ironjaw clan, by the laws of our people and the judgment of our ancestors, I execute this sentence." The blade fell swift and clean. It was over in an instant. Uzrak's body crumpled, his spirit released to face whatever judgment awaited in the halls of the ancestors. The crowd dispersed slowly, quietly. There was no celebration, no satisfaction, just a deep sadness that permeated the settlement like morning fog. They had lost more than a traitor today. They had lost their innocence, the belief that their bonds were unbreakable. They had learned that anyone could fall, that honor required constant vigilance, that loyalty was a choice that had to be made again and again, not just once in a blood oath ceremony. 3 months passed. The human army, deprived of their spy and losing warriors to the Ironjaw clan's increasingly effective guerrilla tactics, eventually withdrew. The cost of taking orc territory was simply too high. Durgash had been right. Sometimes the best defense was making victory not worth the price. But the clan that emerged from the conflict was changed. Uzrak's betrayal had left scars deeper than any battle wound. Warriors were more cautious now, more watchful. The easy trust that had once defined the Ironjaw clan was gone, replaced by vigilance. Every newcomer was scrutinized. Every warrior's loyalty was constantly proven, not just assumed. Gromnar stood at the edge of the settlement, looking out over the Fang Mountains. The sun was setting, painting the peaks in shades of gold and crimson. He came here often now, to this quiet place, to think and remember. A shadow fell beside him. Nazara, leaning on her staff, her ancient eyes understanding. "You still mourn him," she said. Not a question, just an observation. "I mourn who he was," Gromnar replied. "The brother I knew for 23 years. That orc died long before Durgash's blade fell. He died the moment Uzrak took that first piece of gold and convinced himself it was justified. The spirits speak of him," Nazara said. "They say he wanders between worlds, unable to join the ancestors, unable to find peace. His shame is a weight that binds him. Perhaps in time, if he truly learns from what he became, the ancestors might welcome him. But that time is very far away." Gromnar nodded slowly. "Good. He should wander. He should struggle. Easy forgiveness would cheapen the lives he destroyed." He paused. "But I hope eventually he finds peace. Not because he deserves it, but because holding on to hatred forever only poisons the living." "Wise words," Nazara said. "You have grown, Gromnar. This trial has made you stronger. The clan looks to you now with even more respect than before. You could be chieftain one day when Durgash's time comes." "I don't want to be chieftain," Gromnar said. "I just want to be worthy of the oath I swore. I want to be the kind of orc Uzrak should have been. That's legacy enough for me." Below them, the settlement bustled with evening activity. Fires were being lit. Families gathered for meals. Children played between the longhouses. Life continued, as it always did. The Ironjaw clan would survive this. They would remember the lesson Uzrak's betrayal taught them, but they wouldn't let it break them. "There's something you should know," Nazara said after a long silence. "The gold, Uzrak's gold. We gave it to the families of the warriors who died because of his betrayal. It can't bring back the dead, but it can feed the living. It can help them rebuild. Sometimes good can come even from evil, if we're wise enough to transform it." Gromnar smiled slightly. "You're cleverer than I gave you credit for, old one. I've had many years to learn that waste is a luxury we cannot afford. The gold was tainted by how it was earned, but it's just metal. We can cleanse it with purpose, make it serve life instead of death." The families were hesitant at first, didn't want to touch blood money. But when we explained it was either use it to help the clan or throw it back to the humans, they understood. "What would you have me do now?" Gromnar asked. "How do I move forward from this? How do I trust again?" "You don't," Nazara said bluntly. "Not blindly. Trust must be earned every single day. But you also don't let one betrayal poison all relationships. Uzrak's choice was his alone. It doesn't make every warrior a potential traitor. Most orcs would rather die than break their oath. Remember that. Focus on the majority who kept their honor, not the one who lost his." As night fell fully, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Gromnar thought about brotherhood, about loyalty, about the terrible cost of betrayal and the even higher cost of keeping faith. He thought about Uzrak's final words, asking that his death mean something, that it teach others. Perhaps it had. Perhaps that was the only redemption available for someone who had fallen so far. Not forgiveness, not absolution, but the hope that others might learn from his mistakes. That young warriors might see what happened when greed and fear corrupted honor. That the next time someone was offered gold in exchange for loyalty, they might remember Uzrak kneeling in the settlement square, bound and shamed, waiting for an executioner's blade. "I'll honor the oath," Gromnar said quietly, speaking both to Nazara and to the spirits of the ancestors. "For both of us. I'll be the warrior we promised to be, back when we were young and stupid and thought blood oaths were just words. I'll prove that some orcs keep their promises, even when tested, even when it's hard, even when no one would blame them for walking away." "The ancestors hear you," Nazara said, and there was approval in her voice. "They're proud of you, Gromnar. Even your father's spirit. He watches over you with joy. You've become the kind of orc he hoped you would be." They stood together in companionable silence, watching the settlement below, the mountains around them, the vast sky above. The Ironjaw clan would endure. They would face new challenges, new threats, new temptations, but they would face them as they always had, with honor, with courage, and with the hard-won wisdom that came from understanding that loyalty was not just given once and forgotten, but chosen again and again, every single day. In the end, that was what separated them from those who fell. Not strength, not skill, not even courage. It was the daily choice to be worthy of the oaths they swore. The choice to value what they were over what they could gain. The choice to stand with their people, even when standing alone would be easier. That was what made them orcs. That was what made them worthy. And no amount of gold could ever buy it. If you found this story moving, if it made you think about the value of loyalty and the cost of betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe to Orcbound Tales for more epic fantasy stories that explore what it truly means to have honor. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that some things can never be bought, no matter the price. And drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in Gromnar's position. Would you have given Uzrak a chance to escape? Or would you have made the same choice? Let's talk about it.